Hey guys, in today's video, I got some electrical work to do. And some of that work is going to involve making quite a few changes, and it's going to take some time. So this may be a multiple part video. So if this is called part 1, then you'll know that this is going to be a multiple part series. But the job at hand that I need to do is I'm wanting to get the exit signs and emergency lights on their dedicated circuit. And I would also like to get the fire alarm panel on its own dedicated circuit as well. Because emergency lights and exit signs by code have to be on a dedicated circuit for exit signs and emergency lights. Nothing else can be on that circuit. You can have just those two on that one circuit. So this isn't getting inspected, and this is not an actual life safety system that is required to be here, so it doesn't really matter. But I'm starting to get a little concerned about nuisance stripping myself. Not worried about codes, just that I have quite a bit on this circuit. So as you can see, I've taken my panel cover off the panel, and the reason I want to do that is so I can examine what we have for knockouts up here for running 2 new circuits. But we're not nearly at the panel stage yet for today. I still need to put these emergency lights on their own circuit, because right now they're on the same as those receptacles. So I'm going to do some work here and get it so these are on their completely own circuit. Let's begin with this exit sign right here. There we go. It's gone into emergency mode. Now I'm going to pop the cover off. So now that our sign's down, I would love to rip all this out and put a flush mount sign in, but that would just be a little bit too difficult, being that we have a lot of structure in this wall with a giant header up here over the door, so it's not so practical to do that. And I don't actually need conduit since the NMD is over 1.5 meters, so it does not have to be mechanically protected. But I'm still going to keep it in the conduit because it looks better. So now I'm going to run in my line side of the Lumex, or the side that feeds everything. Sorry, my battery died there, but I now have both our line and our load side coming in. So now I'm going to run our load over to our next sign, which is this one right here. But before I go over to my next sign with our load side, I'm going to terminate this sign and make sure this box is all ready. So here it is. This is a lot better than before, and now having 2 Lumexes in the 1/2" PVC. There's a little bit of room, but it is tight. I may have violated a conduit fill rule. I didn't look at the code book for this one, but I'm really not worried about too much heat building up. One, it's a very low current circuit, but you're not allowed to factor that in. But I think there may be rules about how long the conduit is for running NMD in conduit like this. This is probably only about 14 inches. So here's what we're gonna do. The current situation is we have our line coming from those receptacles over there and our load going to those receptacles over there. So we're gonna disconnect this emergency light. These are gonna stay connected. They're just gonna go through. We're not gonna think about that ever again. And then our power to the sign is gonna come in, and our power going out to the sign or to the other exit signs is gonna be going out as a separate circuit. So these we can disconnect and then not ever think about again. Here's our sign in emergency mode. And now to keep it happy, I'm going to do something a little bit dangerous. Seems to kind of be a common trend in my videos. There, as you can see, emergency mode. Back on AC. So, guys, don't do this. This is dangerous. So, that's going to keep the sign happy and charged up, though, in the meantime while I do my work. I've made some more progress. We have our load side coming out of here. It follows that red cable, or that 12-2 for heating, down here. Then it goes across here, then across, then over here, then over, and right now it's hanging down. And is what I have to do now is get it through this hole. This is our old Lumex right here that fed that emergency light. That's going to come out, and now it's going to be our new one, so that can get disconnected from inside this receptacle right here. Alright, I got the power turned off for this one. I pulled out our Lumex here, disconnected it from this junction box right here where we have this receptacle. I can push all this back in once I have two hands, and now I'll run our new Lumex through this hole, disconnect this old one from in the emergency light, and reconnect this new one. Our Lumex is now into this emergency light. So now, as soon as I get that spliced right there, we would have a complete circuit if I connected our line side over there. Back in this box over here, I have all my grounds tied together from all the circuits. These guys that are spliced up here is the receptacle circuit that goes over there to those receptacles. And these will be our new dedicated circuit just for emergency lights, which we can tie our exit sign or our exit sign back onto. Exit sign is back up. This guy I'm going to plug the battery back into. So now the circuit is pretty much complete, other than this Lumex, which will be the dedicated circuit for these exit signs. So as you can see, all of these are in emergency mode right now. We need to get a dedicated circuit to that, and as well as the fire alarm panel. Let's explain how I'm going to do that. So now obviously right here we have a flush mount panel, meaning it's flush with the OSB wall right here. So there's knockouts that you would normally come out of if this panel wasn't flush mount, but we have to get a little more creative being a flush mount. So right here is a 4x11/16 box and a 4x11/16 extension box right here. So is how this is going to work is I'm going to trace out the box on the wall, because we know there's studs on either side of the panel, and then cut a hole in the wall exactly for this box, and then we're going to put on, and once this will be flush, we'll put on this extension box. Now, we might run into some problems, being there's going to be Lumex in the wall that's going to be right where we want to put it, so we might have to push the Lumex back, or change it in some way. So what I'm going to do now is take this panel cover off, and I'm going to be going into this panel live, but it's always a much better idea to turn off the panel, or as best as you can turn it off from the disconnect in the panel. I'm very comfortable with going into live panels though, and live equipment, so I am not concerned about doing so. But you just have to be careful whenever you're going into a live panel. So now that we're in the panel, we need to be careful of a few things, mainly this bus right here. As you can see, that's one phase, that's another phase, they are both hot. These neutral bars, fine to touch, they're not going to hurt you. These ground bars, fine to touch, not going to hurt you. Don't touch that though, that will hurt you. Also, these terminals right here you need to be aware of, and these lugs right here. Aside from that, that's everything that's energized in the panel. So, here are our two 15 amp spare breakers. As you can see, if I flip that, that's on, that's off. So there's where our conductors would go in. Now with 15 amp, you need to size your wire to 14 gauge. So, that's beyond the point right now. So as far as knockouts, we have a 1/2 inch knockout right there. And those NMD connectors, like what's already up there, you can fit 2 Lumexes into each one, I believe, as long as it's a 14-2 or 12-2. 12-3, I believe, only 1. And then on this side, we have 3, which makes this side a better side to go into. So I'm thinking maybe I'll mount our box on this side right here, because we also have the breakers on this side of the panel, which makes this side better to go into. So now the box on this side has 2 knockouts, and on this side 3 knockouts. And as I showed, we have 3 knockouts up there, so we're going to mount our box in the wall this way. As you can see, this is plywood right here, probably because the joist, or sorry, the stud was a little bit out too far, so to make the panel snug, they put that in. The issue is I don't know how high that runs, so we're going to put our box right here, and we're going to cut a smaller access hole first so we can see if there's still plywood there, and then we can come back later and make our hole bigger. And now I can line up my box with my bottom mark as well as my one on the wall right here, which I can trace out how that will look. On just the one side is all I basically need. So now if I push this insulation out of the way, you might be able to see, probably can't, but I do have a couple Lumexes right there, and the wall is actually closer this way, so the wall is right there. So I'm going to have to cut my box slightly over this way, and I'll probably have to move those Lumexes out of my way. I've made me a hole in the wall, so now if we push this insulation over, there's the cold plywood on the other side, and now our conductors aren't stapled until up there and far enough below that I could push them over somewhat far, so that the only obstacle in our way is this 14-2 that is going over top right here. I've widened our hole a little bit more, and if I put our box in, it sits almost flush. It can almost go all the way in, so that's good enough for me. I'm happy with the way that is, but we obviously don't want that in yet because we still need to get our wires from the top to the bottom. So I've got this whole big creation made up. I have 4 14-2s. 2 of those are going to be used right now, or will be used for, one for the fire alarm panel, one for the emergency lights. 2 spare 14-2s, and I have one 12-2 for a 20 amp circuit should I ever need it. It should be a good weapon to smack someone with this. Anyways, so we got to knock out some of the knockouts in the panel and get these into the panel and then pull them down and then fasten this in the wall. Okay guys, probably about 45 minutes later and a lot of work later, I have my new circuits pulled right here. Now, before you guys are like, oh my god, why did you do that live? Oh my god! I did turn off the panel for pulling this in, mostly because this box was swinging around and was going to make contact with that bus bar, and I actually did a couple times and would have shorted face to face, which would not have been good, so I did turn that off. So now I have my connectors in there, that's pulled in like it should, and down here I have everything long enough to make any terminations I need to make in the panel. And now a couple of those, as you can see, this one right there and that one right there, I have, instead of normally push them down from the top of the panel and pull in, these ones I brought in my Lumexes in first and then pushed the connector up into the panel. And these ones are rated to do that. They can go both ways, so you can put them in from the inside of the panel. So what we're going to do now is start terminating our conductors in the panel. So now a few of them, this one and let's say this one, it honestly does not matter. I'm just going to do our longer ones because I'm going to save our longer ones because we're not going to be needing much length because our breaker's right there. So I'm going to use one of these for our emergency light circuit and one for our fire alarm panel. Now, I don't think in a video before I've ever showed the process of terminating panel or what you sort of do when doing it. I've done it before, but never on video. So I'm gonna try and go through all the different steps on basically what you do and how it looks when you terminate a panel. And I'm gonna say it again because I can't stress this enough: don't work in live panels. You're not supposed to do it, and it's dangerous. And I probably will be turning this off if I feel uncomfortable doing so. It's a very dangerous situation and you shouldn't do it. But I really want to keep the lights on so I can make this video. So to begin with, our two new circuits, I'm going to strip these guys down from pretty close to the top, about as close as I can get. Strip down the middle of the Lumex. If you go down the middle, you'll run along the ground and it won't damage any of your current carrying conductors that have insulation on them. So now the first thing we're going to do is terminate our grounds, which I'm going to loop these around, and you got to be really careful of this, that when you're handling ground that doesn't touch one of the live bus bars, because that could be a nasty arc flash. Now with these ground screws in here, you are allowed to double up on them. There, that is the precise torque spec for those screws right there. I can naturally feel in my hand exactly the proper torque spec. There we go, so there's our grounds landed. Now we're going to go to our neutrals. But your neutrals, you don't really have to worry about touching anything too much, being that they are insulated. Now if this was an arc fault circuit breaker, we would land these neutrals right on our arc fault breaker, which then the neutral pigtail would go to the neutral bus, but we're not going to have an arc fault breaker. Now I suppose you can still double up with your neutrals, but we have so much space in this panel that would just look kind of silly. There we go, that's one neutral. There we go, second neutral terminated. Now with our hot conductors, we're going to terminate these next. But I'm not actually going to turn on the breaker yet. So with these, it doesn't really matter which one goes to what, because we know they're both going to be on a 15 amp circuit. They're both, doesn't matter if they're arc fault or anything, they're both going to be dedicated circuits. So I'm going to bring this one to our fire alarm panel, will be this one. And our breaker isn't off of this room, I'm still using this light screwdriver. So now with all of these other guys, is what we're going to do with them is we're actually going to terminate our grounds and our neutrals onto the ground bar and the neutral bars. So then we're going to just cap off the hot and stick it nicely down the side of one of the panels until someday, if they ever need to get used, they will be available. So let's do this. This guy is really long. It does not need to be this long. Okay, little update. It's been a tiny bit since I've turned the power back on. So, as you can see, things are pretty much done in here. You might be able to tell there's a lot more stuff over on this side of the panel now that I've added stuff. All our grounds are together. Our one ground on this side, because I ran one on this side, my two other spares on this side, just to somewhat balance stuff out. So I also labeled them. Here we can see spare 12-2. Spare 14-2, and the neutrals and grounds of those, like I said, are already bonded. Another spare 14-2. So that's pretty much everything for up here. So now we have some work to do up in this top section. Alright guys, we're going to start our work up here in the top part. Now all of this is dead. If I turn these two on, that would energize two of these Lumexes. I'll still decide, or I still have to not decide, but figure out which one it is. First of all, we're going to make a ground pigtail to our box. This is 12 gauge, so use the 12 gauge stripper side. Now we don't want any insulation under there, because that could compromise your ground connection. You don't want to do that unless you want to die. That is solid. Now let's strip some of these Lumexes. So here I have all of our ground spliced together. Now normally I would use one of these blue Morettes, but these are not rated for that many conductors. They're only good for 5 number 14s, which we have 4 number 14 circuits plus a 12. So that won't work, being that we have a 12 is obviously bigger than a 14. So we have to use one of these big red guys, which are rated for this much. So as you can see, every single wire in here is capped off, except for the grounds, obviously, that are bonded. So now we know this guy's gonna be a spare for sure. But now the rest of these 4, we don't know what's gonna be what. So I'm gonna turn on both these breakers right there. Now I'm gonna take our volt tick. So this one, this whole cable right here, we know is gonna be a spare. This one right here is going to be one of our new circuits, so I'm going to leave this sticking out. There's the neutral go along with it. This one is going to be a spare. And this is going to be our other circuit that we're going to keep. So now I've determined that this is our spare 14-2, spare 14-2, spare 12-2. So those are all just going to get coiled up in the back of our box, which, if you're worried about box fill, this is 4 by 11/16 and 4 by 11/16 and 2-inch deep. These boxes can handle quite a bit. This is nowhere close to how much these can handle. Not to mention, there's going to be an extension box over top of that. So box fill, we're not even going to be close to maxing that out. So now what we're going to do is, let's just say our top breaker is the one that we want to be our fire alarm panel. So we're going to turn off the bottom one. So this one right here will be our fire alarm circuit. So now we're going to coil a whole bunch of stuff in the back. We're going to start with our 12-2 spare circuit. Now I'm going to pop our extension box on here. Which just slides on, just like so. I've made up this short piece of conduit here that will come out of my new box I put in and will serve as some protection to the Lumex of my emergency light dedicated circuit. So I have to glue this conduit together now. Which this stuff is gonna stink because I'm doing this inside, which I'm probably gonna regret for the next like 20 days when it smells like this crap. Okay, little update. I have that PVC pipe painting, or drawing from the painting. I painted it metallic silver to kind of match EMT as best I could. Would have painted it white, but I didn't have any white paint. And here's our junction box. As you can see, I've piped into the panel. So this is going to be our new AC supply. Used to be down there through that BX going into the panel. That's going to get removed, since that's going to just be on the same circuit as these receptacles, so that can supply access control system and other non-life safety equipment. So that PVC pipe will go up and over to there just to get that Lumex kind of in place. But yeah, as you can see, the pipe is in here really sturdy. So now I just have to pull through, and really all I have to do is make my splices to here and make my splices in the fire alarm panel, and then we're done. But wait, this video is getting a little bit long, so I'm going to cut this one here, and And in part 2, we'll be finishing our splicing right here and in the fire alarm panel and pulling our wires through the conduit. So kind of left you hanging here in a good spot to make sure you guys are going to come back to watch part 2. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the thumbs up button, and if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and come back for part 2.